Hey Barefoot parents, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Cassie Hutton, and we are talking about postnatal depletion. This is part 2 of a 4-part series. This subject is heavy on my heart and has been for the last year, as I personally experienced postnatal depletion after my 4th child and experienced quite a bit of emotional turmoil that really came between me and my husband, me and my children, and just really was not a fun time, not at all. And so I am here to bring awareness to this issue, to bring you what I learned, what helped me, and pass it along to you so that you can take control of your health, take control of your hormones, take control of your weight fluctuations, that anxiety and that overwhelm that you feel, and especially the mom guilt, right? Did you know that mom guilt is actually a sign of postnatal depletion? It is. So before we dive into that, you know that I am going to talk to you about my Beta Founding Members program. Part of that program is you're going to walk through that with me. You're going to learn how to have a sacred birth. You're going to learn how to have a home birth with just the utmost bliss, and how to make it the experience that you've always desired and have the experience that you've always dreamed of. I also walk through things of how to teach you to cope with the pain, what contractions really are in the physiological process of birth, so that you can go into it prepared, so that you can go into it understanding what to expect and what not to expect, even if you've already had a birth. The reason that I actually wrote this birth course is because I had 2 births and they were extremely long and extremely painful, but I learned a lot of things when it came to my 3rd birth, and I learned to partner with Jesus. And I went from a 21-hour birth to a 3-hour birth that was hardly painful at all. I mean, I had very little pain only up until the time of transition, till the time that the baby was actually born. And so it was a completely different experience because of all the things that I learned. And I had that again with my 3rd, I had that with my 3rd, 4th, and 5th birth. And so I just want to walk you through that and to help you have the birth that you so desire. So go down into the show notes and you can click the Beta Founding Members program. And my course is called An Exodus Birth, Empowering Women for Home Birth Through Education and the Word. Now, let's get into this next episode. Micronutrients are what we're going to talk about. I cannot wait to talk about this. It is something that health professionals are not trained in. They don't talk about it when it comes to your overall health. Micronutrients are even what I focused on to heal my son after he started having seizures. Micronutrients contribute to your overall health and help your organs fire on all cylinders. So when you get your organs working properly, your hormones, your blood sugar, and all those other side effects that are going on with your health, including your thyroid, they're all going to start clearing up. Blood sugar issues are a big deal when it comes to replenishing, because every time your blood sugar spikes or falls, you're burning through those micronutrients even more. And your cells aren't able to get the nutrients that they need to nourish the rest of your body. This is the importance of overall health, is that the nutrients in your body have to get into the cells of your body. As with blood sugar, you become resistant to those kinds of things. But whenever you begin to restore all of those organs, those cells are no longer resistant to all the nutrients that you're putting into your body, and therefore your cells are then able to distribute and carry out all the nutrients that you're putting into your body the way that it's supposed to nourish you, okay? So when you have the proper nutrients in your body, you can actually begin to restore your blood sugars, reverse insulin resistance, and diabetes. This goes back to the organs not functioning properly due to the lack of micronutrients. And it's hard to lose weight as a result because your hormones are not able to balance out. This also has to do with cortisol levels, which we'll get to in another episode, because whenever your cortisol levels are spiking and falling and you're super stressed out and you're burning through all of your cortisol throughout the day, then you're actually teaching your body to hold on to the fat, and that's where you begin to gain all of this weight in your midsection, and that has to do with your adrenals. So it all just kind of comes together, but the number one step is to start focusing on 2 things: restoring micronutrients and then balancing your macronutrients. So we're going to talk about what are micronutrients and what are macronutrients. Micronutrients are your vitamins and your minerals. So vitamins A, vitamins B, all of the vitamin Bs, vitamin C, vitamin D, E, and vitamin K. And then you have your minerals, calcium, iron, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, zinc, copper, manganese, selenium, iodine, and then there's even a whole plethora of what they call trace minerals. Unfortunately, a lot of times when we think about electrolytes, we think about things like Gatorade or your body armor or things like that. But all of those types of drinks are going to have synthetic vitamins and minerals in it and things that your body really doesn't recognize, including the food coloring and all of the unnatural sugars that your body tries to process, and it does process it, but at the same time, it ends up having to detox it. These types of foods and drinks can actually hinder the healing process if you're actually in postnatal depletion. So we're eventually going to talk about all of the ways that I personally have begun to replenish my body and through what types of foods, what types of supplements, and all of those things. But just know the first step in starting to replenish is to eat more, find all natural, from the ground, wholesome supplements. I use a Redmond's from Redmond's Real Salt. I use their electrolyte powder along with an adrenal cocktail powder. I started doing bone broths and just really every time that I eat, focusing on what types of nutrients I'm actually getting from this food instead of worrying about carbs and the different types of things that the label wants to put on the package. I'm more so worried about those macronutrients. Now, those macros are important, which we kind of mentioned. Your macros are your fats, your carbs, and your proteins. And so balancing all of those and eating your protein first to help balance your blood sugar is also super important when it comes to replenishing in postpartum depletion, because you want to eat in order to balance your blood sugar. And so if you're only ever eating protein without your carbs, you're actually telling your body to release insulin, and that's going to make your blood sugar drop. And then if you're only ever eating a lot of carbs without a good, healthy protein in it first, you are telling your blood sugar to spike. And then if you're not getting those healthy fats in there, your body can't detox. It's not going to sustain your blood sugar for that long period of time, and different things like that. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Barefoot Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Cassie Hutton. I help Christian moms have a home birth they desire through education and the Word. If you're an old soul that is passionate about restoring godly wisdom and disconnecting from this interconnected world, then you're in the right place. Let's discuss godly restoration through the 5 H's of home: home birth, homeschool, homemaking, homemade, home remedies, and health. The second part that we're going to talk about is identifying the signs of depletion. And so how do you know if you are actually experiencing postpartum depletion? And I talked about some of those symptoms in the beginning of this podcast and what I went through, but let's explore a few other common signs that you might be experiencing that I might not have experienced. And so it's essential to recognize these signs early on to pave the way for effective recovery. Just like I said, even if you're having PMS symptoms, start recognizing that that is your body's way. Like, clearly, God created us as good. And so if God created us good, then why would we have these PMS symptoms? It's a sign that our body needs help. There's something going wrong. Women shouldn't just be getting irritable all the time right before their period. It is a hormonal shift that's happening, but it shouldn't shift to a point that we constantly are feeling fatigued, feeling worn out, and having all the pain and the cramps and the mood swings. So what happens whenever you are actually becoming depleted is that your cells and your organs are not able to run properly because they're not getting the proper fuel from the food that you're supposed to be eating. And in turn, it makes you feel terrible. So it can contribute to even further sleep deprivation because you can't relax, you can't turn your brain off, you have high cortisol levels, and so you're just constantly feel like go, or you crash and burn. And on top of that, a mother with a newborn feels completely isolated in our culture because we've not built a culture around holding the mother Instead, we try to hold the baby, right? We buy things for the baby when clearly it's the mom that needs the things after she has the baby. And so if she's not fed properly, people bring meals over, that's great, but a lot of times it's filled with pasta and casseroles and tons of carbs, and mom needs protein in order to rebuild. She needs micronutrients in order to rebuild. So here are I want you to, if you have a pen with you, write some of these things down, or kind of check off in your brain and count how many of these you can say, yes, that applies to me. And if you say to more than half of these that's you, then I would say you're definitely in postnatal depletion. Even if you are years outside of having children, it's affecting you. Even like I said, if your teenager is experiencing these cramps and they've never had children before, it's still a sign of depletion. It's just not going to be called postnatal depletion, if that makes sense. So if you have any sort of digestive issues, this is definitely a sign of postnatal depletion. Fatigue, exhausted, even upon waking up in the morning. If you fall asleep unintentionally, for instance, like if you're putting your kids to bed and then you fall asleep with them and then you kind of wake up a little bit later, that's also a sign. Sensitivity to bright lights and sensitivity to sounds. This is a sign of adrenal burnout. You need to start taking your adrenal cocktails, which is vitamin C, potassium, and salt. You can look that up. You can look up different recipes online for that. I actually take an adrenal cocktail from Jigsaw Health every morning. I really need to take it twice a day, but I've been taking that for almost a year now. If you have high anxiety, you're a light sleeper, you have a low libido, that's a definite sign, because your libido should be high whenever your estrogen spikes right there around the time of, God created us to procreate. So you should, have a high libido around the time that you're about to ovulate. If you have brain fog, you struggle to keep up with basic self-care. Low confidence and self-esteem, a sense of isolation and lack of support. That was a huge one for me. I just felt completely isolated and like I had no support whatsoever. You feel like there's no time for you. That was also a huge one for me. You are overwhelmed and unable to cope. You feel that there's a sense of guilt, shame, and failure around motherhood. So those last 4 or 5 that I mentioned, I have already said that those were me. When it comes to the emotional part of postnatal depletion, but here are some actual physical symptoms of postnatal depletion. So you have the baby brain or the brain fog, the fatigue, which is often somewhat debilitating, the insomnia. These are some big ones right here that I'm about to list. You have loss of skin elasticity, skin dryness, softer nails, thinning hair. My hair was falling out like crazy, and it was more so than I had ever lost postpartum. It's normal to lose hair in large quantities after you have your baby, but this was like, no, I could feel that my hair was actually thinning. You have increased translucency of the teeth. This is because you're providing so much calcium to your baby, and so your body is you're not giving yourself enough calcium, so your body is actually pulling it from the calcium that you have, your bones and your teeth. You have receding gums, you bruise easier. So those are some of the physical symptoms that you can start looking at and say, oh, okay, if this is going on with you, it all comes down to replacing those micronutrients. So I'm going to stop the episode right there, and I really want to share something very unique and important with you. Do you want to know how you can test for adrenal burnout at home? The adrenal glands are located at the top of the kidneys and are essential for energy regulation. Do you feel tired but wired? Head on over to the Facebook group or sign up for my emails to get the adrenal burnout test. This is a simple test that you can do at home to test how well your adrenals are functioning. All you need is a flashlight and a friend, or hey, your spouse. Do it on each other. So I will link where you can get that resource, and it will be delivered to your inbox through your email, and you can do this test at home. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Barefoot Parenting. If what you're doing works for you, is healthy for your family, and is growing you in the ways you need to grow, then it's time to step out of the feeling of guilt and shame and wear your Barefoot Mama badge proudly. Remember, barefoot parents are doing things differently, so be encouraged today. If you're feeling the pushback in your parenting style, you're doing something right.